Well, hello everybody. I'm out in the gardens this time instead of in the hoop house. I'm afraid this video got to be a little bit on the lengthy side, but I couldn't seem to find any way of shortening it. I've been doing some work around, transplanted a couple of those wild river grapes vines onto the trellises at the cabin. I had a request from somebody who wanted to see how the window boxes were attached to the cabin, so there's a little clip on how I did that. And then I've been planting beans, I guess, mostly in the gardens, and potatoes. I started a bed of potatoes, so that's basically what's happening here. I'll get out of the way and let you see the video that follows. Well, I've started planting the New Brunswick wild river grape, the one that I propagated, I guess, 8 grapevines from propagation, but in the hoop house all winter. I've leaved out this. I've put 2 on the cabin, the 2 trellises that you probably saw in my previous video. This is the one that's on the east side by the door. I won't bother to show you the other one. It's just another grapevine next to the cabin. But I've been requested to show how I installed the window boxes under the windows here. Not a very elaborate or complicated installation, but since I've had the request, I will show you now how I put the window boxes on the cabin. Well, first, the window boxes are just plastic window boxes from, I think it was Home Depot that I picked them up at. There's nothing very fancy about them. I think they were like $6 a piece or something like that. And then I went looking for brackets to put them on. I could find lots of brackets that didn't have this support brace, and they were not very expensive at all, but I came across these in a local hardware store, and they're quite expensive. They're over $6 a piece, and I have 2 window boxes, so I needed 4 of them. But I think they're going to give excellent support, and there's no way that they will bend down or whatever under the weight of the window box with the soil and plants in it. They're fastened under the window to the side of the cabin with just 3/4 inch wood screws. In the top here of this support arm there are 3 more holes, and my plan is to use the back hole and the front hole to help attach the window box to the cabin. And what I hope to do here is get the window box roughly where I would like to see it. I guess that's about it. And then I'll just take a nail and go up through, and just sort of scratch the bottom of the window box to give me an idea of where to drill holes, and then I will wire them to the supports there. So I'll show you that little process in a minute. Well, as you can see, the nail wasn't working all that well, so I switched, and I used a carpenter's pencil to do the marking with. And now I'm just going to take my handy dandy little drill here. Drill 4 holes for the wires. I won't make you watch me drill all 4. I'm using a 14 gauge galvanized wire, which is a lot stronger than is required, but I just happen to have some. It's what I use for support wires for the grapevines in the hoop house. I just simply put the wire down through the holes that I just drilled and down through the holes in the support, and then I'll show you what I do underneath. You can see that's the 2 wires coming out through the supports underneath, the same wire coming out through 2 holes rather. And I just take them and twist them together. Doesn't have to be completely tight. What I'm concerned with here is making sure that the planter doesn't get bumped into and knocked off of the supports. I don't think wind would ever blow them off anyway. That's That's it sort of trimmed up. And then you can just bend that up out of the way so that it isn't really visible when you're walking by. And that basically is all I do. I do it the other side the same as I did this side. I'm not quite ready to put soil in the planters yet, so we won't go that far. I don't think there's any danger of frost left, but there really isn't any advantage to putting the flowers out yet either. They're doing much better in the hoop house where it's warmer, so probably in early June I will transplant them out into the planters here. Do you ever notice how my videos all start with that rooster? This is mid-morning on 10 a.m. or so on May 15th. I'm not quite sure when I'll get this particular clip up on the internet, up on YouTube, but today I hope to plant my potatoes and beans, both the pole beans and lima beans. The potato variety this year is Yukon Gold. Normally I don't have to slice my seed potatoes in two, but this time when they arrived there was very few potatoes in the 5-pound bag. They were all very large, so I have cut a number of them up, probably close to 10 days ago. And give you a little look here. They have started to chit. They were sprouted a bit when they arrived, but also the area where I cut them has sort of dried off, which will hopefully prevent them from rotting in the soil. The temperature here is still staying very cool. Perhaps more typical of what our weather's like, but in the last few years it's been warmer in the spring. It's mid-morning now on May 15th, a beautiful sunny day, and I would say about 10 degrees. We're not getting above 12 to 15 degrees most days, but anyway, I thought this would be a good day to put the potatoes in. Tomorrow we're supposed to have rain, and then it's going to be followed by several more sunny days. So I'll give you a look at the place where I'm going to plant them here in just a second. I'll give you a little idea of where this small bed is situated. I just took a measuring tape and did a rough measurement on it. It's about 7 feet long, 4.5 feet wide. It's a bed that was started a year ago last fall. All I did was empty out the compost that I had used in containers, smart pots and whatever around the garden, and covered that with 2 or 3 wheelbarrows of fresh green manure and dressing out of the hen house in the fall. Did the same thing last fall, added more of the compost from containers and some more green manure out of the hen house, and it sat there over the winter. I've sort of mixed it in now. Last year I grew squash in it, and I was a bit concerned. Initially they looked like they weren't going to make it, like the manure was too strong for them. They were a bit yellow for a while, but then they took off and did really well later in the summer. Potatoes are much more hardier, so I'm hoping that potatoes will work even better in it. Anyway, I hope to get at least 2 rows, I think 2 rows, planted probably quite thickly, quite close together, but I think I'll make 2 rows there. I'll show you how I do that in a minute. Well, I dug 2 deep trench rows, and I think I counted 28 pieces that have gone in there. A little unbalanced, there's more on one side than the other. And now I'll give you a look at how I cover them to get them started. You can completely bury them deep, and usually they will come up. But I prefer to just cover them lightly, and as they sprout and come up I just keep adding more soil. It's important that your potatoes are down deep, because if they are the new potatoes as they grow, if they're exposed to sunlight, they will sunburn. And by sunburn I mean they turn green. Sometimes in the store you see potatoes that have got a green side to them. Well, according to science, that's carcinogenic. It causes cancer. So you want your potatoes buried down deeply. The soil looks, you see some little light gray there around where the potatoes are. I added a good amount of an organic balanced fertilizer, 444. It won't burn anything. It's just blood and bone and all that good stuff. There's no chemicals or anything in there that will burn the potatoes. So I put a good amount of that in. And now we'll go over and cover a few over, I guess, and call it quits for this video. I'll finish burying them in a minute, but that's all I do. They're probably down 3 or 4 inches, and within days, normally, if we get some warmer days, you'll see the leaves coming up through. I'll give you a look at that possibly even before I post this video. Well, there's everything covered. I just took the back of the hoe and very lightly tamped the soil down on top of them just to get them good soil contact. I didn't press too hard because you don't want to break off those little sprouts that you've tried so hard to get growing. In a few days' time, hopefully they'll be up, and I'll show you that at that time. Well, this is one of my 4-foot square beds that I used for square foot gardening and still do use for square foot gardening. This year it's going to be a bean tower, bean teepee, whatever you want to call it, made out of bamboo canes, 6-foot canes was the longest I could find. Time you lose almost a foot of those in the soil. It's not really high enough for pole beans, but anyway, it's what I'm going to do. We'll see what happens. I have prepared the squares around the outside, the perimeter. I added agricultural lime, some of the 444 organic fertilizer, and a good amount of the 2-year-old composted chicken manure. That should get everything off to a start. And thinking of the agricultural lime, I didn't mention with the potato bed. I added nothing there as far as lime is concerned. Potatoes like an acid soil, and if you make a mistake and lime the bed and it gets too alkaline, you can still eat the potatoes, but they're not very pretty. They develop what they call scab. You don't get a very nice looking potato out of it that way. The 4 squares in the middle I haven't done anything to. Possibly I'll scatter some lettuce seed in there or something, but if the beans all grow up around the outside, it's not going to get much light in there, so just sprinkle in some lettuce seed and see what happens, I guess. Anyway, I'm about to give my teepee a try here. And also I've been around this bed with I have a rechargeable battery-operated weed whacker thing, and I didn't take this plant out here. You can see. Quite sure that's a digitalis, foxglove. If you garden the way I garden, you never know where something's going to pop up, basically because the gardens are ignored. I haven't planted foxglove in many years, but I have it all over my property. I don't know if the birds spread the seed, wind spreads the seed, or it throws the seed. I don't know, but that looks to me like foxglove, so I'm going to leave it alone and probably be a nice tall spike of purplish flowers next to the beans. You can do yourself an injury making one of these things. Bamboo canes and pieces of wire snapping and going in all directions. Well, there it is. I think it would be an insult to our First Nations people to call it a teepee, so I'll call it a bean tower. And I'm skeptical about the height. I know the pole beans will grow much taller than that. They did last year on different gardens here. I'll show you where I'm going to plant some more. But anyway, I'm going to plant pole beans around it and see what happens. I think those show up. I'm not planting just where the bamboo poles are. The package says that you can plant them 2 inches apart and put them in an inch deep. So that's what I'm doing here, is roughly 2 inches apart and then shoving them in an inch deep and just firming them in. I didn't water the potatoes after I planted them, and I'm not going to water the beans in either. We're supposed to be getting a fair amount of rain overnight tonight, so I'll let nature do the watering. That soil has warmed up nicely. Earlier I said I thought it was about 10 degrees. I just checked and it's 17 degrees now in the shade, so we're getting our first relatively warm day here. And that's good for beans. They need a warmer soil than peas do. I have 4 of these beds with the chicken wire trellis frame up the back. This one has my garlic growing in the front. And directly behind the garlic, which you probably can't see, is the leftover brassicas. And then behind that I've just planted a row of the beans, the Blue Lake. Same in this one. This is the asparagus bed. The soil is looking light gray because I just gave it a good fertilizing with the organic fertilizer, and planted a row of the beans there as well. As I said, I have 4 of these things, and I usually plant 2 in beans and 2 in peas. This year I'm only going to plant beans. The peas that are growing right now in the hoop house are going to be it for peas this year. Last year I bought a pressure canner, first time I ever had one, and I canned my own beans, whatever beans I had. It wasn't that many, 8-10 jars, something like that. I absolutely love them. They're delicious. So this year I'm growing as many as I can. I'm going to can as many as I can, I guess. Anyway, over the other 2 beds are behind rabbit fencing. I haven't had any problems the last couple of years with rabbits, but a few years ago I bought Italian cannelloni bean seeds home from Italy. I was there on vacation and planted them, and they were doing beautifully. They nice looking plants. They started producing beans. I ate 1 or 2 of the beans raw and came out in the garden a day later. There weren't even any plants left, completely consumed, beans, plants and all. Since then the rabbits have been a little kinder, but just as an insurance policy I'm going to put a couple of rows plus my lima beans behind the rabbit fencing. Well, I've planted the beans in these 2 beds here as well. The back rows against the trellis, the chicken wire trellis, is planted the same as it is in the other beds, with a pole bean every 2 inches. But these are the lima beans. I'm planting them sort of on a square foot grid, 5 in each square, 1 in the corner and 1 in the center. You can't see me doing the second bed. I'm zoomed in on the other one, but I'll get more in a second, I guess. And in front of each of these bean beds there are 2 other rows that will be planted probably later this week once the rain is over, if we actually get the rain that we're supposed to get tonight. Plan to plant those full of rutabagas, which we call turnips. I've had enough for one day. I'm out of here. I've been tortured by the black flies about the last 2 hours, so it hasn't been pleasant at all. I've inhaled several of them even, so I'm out of here to go for a walk where hopefully it's a little breezier and not so many black flies.